anything that's on that screen right now, just the way this is displaying. So,
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the last session of today. We're here with Jared Olkin. He's the founder and CEO of Revolution Gelato. And Jared, please take it away.
Thank you. I grew up eating ice cream in my mom's award-winning homemade scoop shop in North Carolina. I love the taste of super premium, full-fat dairy ice cream, and so does the rest of America. The average American actually ate 16 pounds of ice cream last year. This is about 20 pints per person, and that translates to a $10.3 billion US market. The problem is that everything that's on the market today requires a choice. Either you eat what you want, which tastes great because it's delicious, it's creamy, it's indulgent, or you eat what you should, what's consistent with values of health, sustainability, humane living. Dairy is really good at what you want and not so great at what you should. Non-dairy is good at what you should and not so great at what you want. And the brands that claim to hit that sweet spot in the middle just don't necessarily deliver. We do not, and I do not, want to choose between my love and our love of good food and our core values. And we don't think that anyone should have to. So that's why we come in. We make plant-based gelato that tastes better than dairy using clean, simple ingredients so that you can indulge and feel good at the same time. No more compromise. And so to make that concrete, if you compare us against traditional dairy gelato, and this is just one example, we're coming in at 29% fewer calories, 28% less sugar, 18% less fat, no cholesterol, and completely organic. If you look at our ingredient panel, it's simple, recognizable, clean ingredients that you can really feel good about putting into your body compared to a lot of what else is on there, whether in the dairy or non-dairy space. But most importantly, we simply taste better. We've competed directly against dairy products in taste competitions, and we won again and again and again. It's not just critics. Consumers have given us great reviews along the way. We've got a really stellar following on Instagram, and we see, most importantly, that this is not just your hardcore vegans, but we get a lot of people who regularly consume dairy who just like our product and like the way it makes them feel and like the way it tastes. And we've seen this play out not just in our product, but in our brand. This fall, we actually ran a sampling program through a company called Mom's Meat, where a bunch of groups of moms got together. We sent them a kit, they tasted it. And what we found in the surveys afterward is that before it started, 85% had never, ever heard of our brand. They had this single touch point through Mom's Meat. And afterward, over 99% said that they trust the brand, with about 2/3 of them saying that they trust it very much. And so with that, we've seen a lot of growth. We're now in over 300 points of distribution, including key natural and specialty retailers like Whole Foods, King's, Balducci's, and this month we're launching with Mom's in the Mid-Atlantic. Our food service is strong and growing. Obviously, given the current circumstances and climate, that's a little bit on the quieter section right now, but we know that that will be coming back, and we know that we are really well positioned to continue growing in the food service channel. We work with the #1 and #2 natural foods distributors in the country, and we've got e-commerce established, which has been growing a lot over the last couple of months. So that, coupled with our supply chain, puts us in really good shape. We've got full East Coast coverage today and key manufacturing, cold chain, and distribution partners in place. And this gives us a foundation for rapid expansion over the next 2 years. In the past year, we grew 150% revenues year over year, closing at $500,000 in sales. Now, we know because of COVID that 2020 is going to be smaller than we had initially hoped, but we also know when we look at the trends that we're going to be even stronger in 2021 and beyond. And one of the reasons for that is that ice cream is a recession-proof category. We saw this in the downturn of 2008, that the daily affordable luxuries continue to grow and continue to perform well. And ice cream, luckily for us, is one of those categories that really sits there well. And our ability to keep growing is driven by huge market opportunities. That 10.3 billion ice cream market is dominated by dairy. Plant-based right now represents just a fraction of it. In fact, in 2019, household penetration was just 6.7% for plant-based ice creams. For a point of reference, plant-based milk was at 41% penetration. But if you look in this category, dairy is growing 3% over the last 2 years. Plant-based is growing 10 times faster in the same period. There's just an incredible amount of opportunity here for the brands who can come in and have people enjoy what they're tasting, because that's been the biggest obstacle, has been taste. We've got a really strong core team to execute on our plan. My sister and I worked in our mother's parlor, where we learned what it takes to craft really incredible ice cream. And since then, I've become an expert in non-dairy ice cream formulation. Professionally, my background is in strategy and operations. And my sister Leia came in with over 7 years of food service management experience. The recent additions to our team, Paul Buckle came on earlier this year, and he has over 30 years of sale experience, including Brio ice cream and the hugely successful No Evil Foods. And then right now we're actually actively engaged with Michael Kravitz to bring him on to lead our marketing. And he's an award-winning creative leader who led the marketing department for Honest Tea through into their acquisition through Coke, and has worked with a whole host of brands across the food and CPG channel. We are actively raising capital to grow right now. We most recently graduated from the first cohort of the Big Idea Ventures Accelerator, which is a plant-based accelerator based in New York and Singapore. And the capital that we raise is going to be deployed on 3 key initiatives. The first is innovative new products that will enhance our competitiveness on shelf. It'll improve our unit economics. And these have been areas that we have succeeded in despite challenges and not being quite on par with the competition. In addition, where the growth is happening is in novelties and in other single-serve type impulse purchases. And we've got new products already in pilot right now with Whole Foods that we're going to be expanding and rolling out. With that change, we're going to be rolling out new sales. We're opening up 1,000 new doors, and we're going to be getting additional placements in the locations where we are. Much of that is already in an active pipeline. And the last is high impact marketing. We've seen that our product stands apart from everyone else in the market. We've seen that our brand resonates with people, but we've also seen that people just don't know who we are. And so that is the bulk of the investment, is just introducing our brand to the consumers who we know are already looking for a product like us. So if you want to be a part of the fastest growing segment of the ice cream industry and make a difference with your dollars, then please come join the revolution. Thank you so much, and I would welcome any questions.
Thanks, Jared. I see we have a question from Kristen. She's asking about the business model, whether you're looking to offer it in retail stores as well as a direct-to-consumer product.
Yeah, so we are actually currently sold in retail. We're in, for major retailers, Whole Foods, Kings and Balducci's, Mom's Organic Market in the Mid-Atlantic. There are a lot of independents that also carry our product. All in, we're in between 250 and 300 retail stores currently. And if you go to our website, there's a store locator.
Got it. And we have another question from Alberto. He's wondering, how sustainable is your competitive advantage versus other non-dairy alternatives?
Yeah, I mean, I really stake our position on continued innovation. You know, I think when you look at what is coming out into the market, the fact is there's a lot of Me Too kind of brands where they're taking something that's already been done and replicating it without necessarily improving on the quality. And the fact is that ice cream is an indulgent eating experience, and that's what people really look for. And there's research year over year that shows that what people care about is, does it taste good? And that's still been the biggest challenge for non-dairy, even as it continues to get better. So where we are right now is as the quality leader, and I feel very confident saying that, but we're not going to rest there either. So what we have right now is kind of V1.0. We're actually actively engaged in V2.0, which is not only going to bring us into a more competitive price point, but is actually improving on our already award-winning profile.
And Roger Spillman, he's wondering, are there any benefits in terms of shelf life or expiration dates in being non-dairy? And just given that, sometimes waste is a concern for many ice cream companies.
I wish I could say yes, but for better or worse, we perform very comparably to dairy. So the eating experience is similar, the makeup is similar, which means on the one hand, if it's stored properly in a very cold freezer with minimal temperature fluctuations, it can last well over a year with basically maintaining product quality. But obviously, if it gets left out on a loading dock or sits in a hot car, it's pretty easy to go down fast. So we unfortunately succumb to the same cold chain issues that everyone else does. We're going to try to mitigate it.
I see. And one other question, in terms of the distribution and the supply chain, how quickly can you scale that up, do you think?
Very fast. So we work with a contract manufacturer. So we are really not even close to hitting their capacity constraints. So we have quite a bit of room to grow with them, and we've been working with them for a little over 5 years. So we have a really, really good relationship with our manufacturer. And then earlier this year, we partnered with US Cold, which is one of the leading cold chain suppliers. And that's made a huge difference in our ability to keep our cold chain costs down and our quality up. So we're in one of the DCs right now. We could open up many others. And then similarly, working with UNFI and KeHE, we're in a handful of their DCs, the ones where we currently have retail customers. But because we're already in the system, already set up, if we have a new anchor account and want to enter a new territory, it's very easy.
And maybe the last question in the final 2 minutes from Tara Davids. In terms of restrictions on the use of the word gelato in a non-dairy context, what was your decision around using gelato versus ice cream?
Sure. So it's a twofold decision. One motivated by how we look at our product, and the second motivated by those restrictions you talked about. So the first is, what we've done is we really created a recipe completely from scratch and pulled our favorite parts from Italian style gelato and American style ice cream. So we have that density and that flavor profile that you expect from a traditional Italian gelato, and we serve our product as a warmer temperature just like that. But we kept the richness and the higher fat content of a traditional American style ice cream. So it's a blend between the two, but I would say closer in style to a gelato. And then secondarily, yeah, the FDA says that to call it ice cream, it has to have at least 10% milk fat, and we use no milk. So legally, we could never call it ice cream if we wanted to, but there's no standard around gelato.
I see. Fantastic. Well, Jared, really appreciate you telling us about Revolution Gelato, and it looks really interesting. I know there's a lot of comments saying the same thing. So thanks very much for your time, and look forward to speaking again soon.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I'm now going to introduce Faith Larson. I'm just going to bring up her screen. Hi, Faith. So Faith is the Chief Strategy Officer of GrainBridge. So Faith, please feel free to take it away.
Okay, thanks. And thanks for inviting me. I'm going to just quickly share my screen. Oh, that was share the event, excuse. Oh, I'm sorry. 1 second here. pull up my presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, I can see it.
Great. Well, again, thanks for inviting me today. I'd like to talk about my company called GrainBridge, which is launching a new product here midsummer called Stratum. And so what we know is that the world of agriculture has changed, and it's actually continuing to change at a rate faster than any of us could have ever imagined. If you'll look at the slide, you'll see here just a landscape of the current ag tech entrance into the agricultural space. And when you look closely, what you'll see the focus areas that exist today are really around the science and agronomic information related to a farm. So we think about precision agriculture, we think about the use of drones and sensors and smart irrigation, machine data. And we also think about how to manage the farm through farm management software. But what you'll see in this slide is you don't see a lot of the focus on how farmers can sell their grain. And when we think about the complexity that's associated with selling grain, when you look at the futures markets, focusing on your local area and supply and demand that works there, but also having to understand global macroeconomics and making those decisions, you can imagine that a lot of information is used in making a grain sales decision. But yet we can see in the ag tech landscape that grain marketing is a very small piece of that landscape today. So what do we know? We at GrainBridge have surveyed more than 2,000 farmers recently across the US, and more than 2/3 of those farmers have stated that they're going to incorporate more data into their decision-making for their farms in the next year. Now, that means they're looking at data for across the farm. As we'd mentioned, there's improved science, technology related to seed, there's improvement in the agronomics, and information that they use to actually plant and harvest their grain. But they're really not seeing a lot of support on the grain selling side. What we know is that also 60% of farmers are making their grain sales decisions on their own. It's overwhelming when we look at the macroeconomics, as I've stated, globally and at the local level, when you look at futures markets and the use of derivatives and understanding how cash grain works, it's very overwhelming to try to consume all of that information. So there's a need for data and support from data to make better decisions. Currently, the farmers have told us they don't feel they're doing a good job in marketing and selling their grain. They often feel that they're using incorrect information. So in looking at making a decision on when to sell, maybe they're using the incorrect information related to the time to sell, at what the futures markets will be doing, and also what the local cash grain market is doing in their area. They often end up selling in the bottom third of the market. So what does this all mean? Well, we know that farmers are using more technology, but farmers are fundamentally still using human interaction and one-on-one relationships to help guide them in selling grain. They value relationships with their key advisors and stakeholders. They appreciate picking up the phone or having a meeting to understand when it is right to sell grain and at what time. So what we know is that while farmers value their trusted relationships, reliable technology can help them to make the most informed decisions. GrainBridge is not here to thwart that traditional relationship that a farmer has with their grain buyer. We just want to provide reliable technology to help support it. So let's take a look at our solution. First and foremost, GrainBridge has been around for a number of years, and GrainBridge was founded by a farmer who believes there has to be a better way in the decision support around making a grain marketing decision. And with that, we're now launching a product called Stratum. Stratum is an all-encompassing grain marketing platform. The intent is to connect farmers on one end with all of the buyers of grain that they may sell to on the other. Let's take a deep dive into the technology and the product. Fundamentally, what GrainBridge tries to do is to attempt to collect all the data that a farmer needs to make an informed decision on when to market their grain. We then take this and combine it with a commerce platform that will enable the farmer to sell the grain directly on the platform at a time that's most convenient for the farmer. So let me take you through a high level of the product using Charlie Schmidt. Charlie's actually a farmer based in Nebraska outside of Omaha. And so we'll use Charlie to demonstrate and illustrate an example of how Charlie uses Stratum. First and foremost, Charlie is able to hone in on his farming location and select all of the grain buyers that make sense for him to sell to in his particular area. Charlie can then view pertinent information related to when he can actually deliver his grain to a particular grain buyer. So he's able to see wait times and whether it's feasible for him to deliver his grain. He also has the ability to view cash basis information, so the local bids coming in from the grain buyers, current prices, and other relevant information that he needs to know at a particular grain buying location, such as their address, phone, any communications that are pertinent to what's happening at that particular buyer's location. Charlie can also easily, through the application, view the current market information. So he has an ability to pull up in real time futures markets information. He can filter by the particular commodity he's interested in looking at information for, view historical, and view some charting as well. Charlie then has the capability to go ahead in the platform and link his grain buying accounts. And so all of the grain buyers that you saw in the previous map that Charlie wishes to do business with, he can simply use his login information for those grain buyers and log in and access his accounts through Stratum. Charlie then has the ability to pull pertinent information about all of the business he's doing with grain buyers. It's especially important for farmers to have the capability to view their entire position and what they have going on with all the different grain buyers they're working with. One example is Charlie's capability of pulling scale tickets. Charlie would be able to have dashboarding that shows all of the different delivery information, both quantities and the quantities applied to what particular contracts Charlie has in which Charlie has sold grain. Charlie also has the capability to pull all of his contracts from all buyers. Today, Charlie would have to go into each individual grain buying location site and use all separate login credentials to access his contracts. And then outside of those tools, he would have to combine that information, whether it's in Excel or some other format, to really understand how much grain he sold in total and what he has left in his position. In this example, you'll see that he's pulling a contract where he sold 10,000 bushels of corn to a particular elevator. He can see that this corn is unpriced. Charlie also has the ability to budget for his farm and manage his farming operations and understand his true cost of production. So whether it's the price of his seed, his fertilizer for the year, chemicals, fuel, and any other inputs that he needs to actually grow his crop and harvest it, he has the ability to bring that information into the tool and then also forecast out his predicted yields by the crop that he's growing and how many acres he'll be producing. That's going to lead him to get to his break-even price, what he has to absolutely sell at to break even financially on the farm. He then has the ability to set profit targets and understand the prices he needs to sell at to achieve those profit targets. He can do this planning at the individual field level or roll it up to higher levels of business, and certainly also look at it for the entire farming operation. Charlie then has the ability to measure each of his transactions and sales that as he makes them. In this example, Charlie knows his break-even is $3.25 a bushel. He's averaged sales of $3.56, so therefore he can see his profit. The tool will also be able to tell him based on the cash bid information coming from his buyers when he has another profitable sales opportunity that he can make. Finally, when Charlie's had enough decision support tools in the way of heavy data science, predictive analytics, Charlie can make the decision to make an offer to a particular grain buyer when he wants to sell his grain. Charlie has the capability to make an offer to one grain buyer or to many. In this particular example, he's looking to offer December corn and sell 10,000 bushels at a price of $4.15. As Charlie's tracking his grain selling, he can also track his performance. And so he has the capability to understand at particular grain buyers what performance has been, historical data for where cash prices have been, and what he's sold at. Finally, Charlie has the ability to use decision support tools provided by Stratum to help make these decisions. Stratum will help him to create scenarios and run what-if analysis to understand what selling decisions will do to his bottom line impact. Here's an example of what-if analysis. Charlie can simply enter what he's looking to sell and at what price, and our tool will be able to quickly, on a real-time basis, calculate for him his impact to his farm. In this case, he'll understand, again, what are his break-even amounts, and for what particular production and acreage, if he sells at, what his bottom line impact will be. Finally, with the decision support, if Charlie feels informed to make a decision, he can go ahead and execute a contract to sell grain directly on the platform with one of the grain buyers he's working with. And I should clarify, this enables Charlie to be able to sell grain at times convenient for him. We know that in farming, particularly during harvest, planting season as we're in now, farmers are in the field. It's very difficult to get to a place to be able to make these informed decisions. And a lot of times farmers are making decisions during timeframes in which the markets are closed and the grain buying locations are shut down. But through the platform, he still has the capability to make these decisions at a time convenient for him. Once Charlie's made his grain marketing decisions, he can also benchmark himself against his peer group. So he'll be able to access highly anonymized and aggregated data and understand, how am I performing versus my peers? This will also help to guide me in making my grain sales decisions. So whether it's looking at what he has sold at what particular time, the levels he's sold at, how he performed in buying his seed versus his peer, he'll receive a grade for each of these categories so that he can understand how he's performing and whether he needs to make any changes along the way. In this case, you'll see that Charlie's progress for planting is only at 24%, whereas his peer group is at 30%, and all users on the platform at 32%. This can help guide Charlie in his decision-making. So in summary, at a high level, the Stratum product is going to provide the ability for Charlie to view a lot of information about the grain buyers he's working with. It's going to be able to allow him to link his accounts so that he can see dashboarding and full picture position of his farm and his grain sales without having to access information from multiple locations. He then will also have the ability through data science and analytics to have decision support to make the right grain marketing decisions and provide the most profitability for his farm. And then he certainly would have the ability to execute his contract as well. So in summary, we've got both benefits for a farmer and the benefits for the grain buyer. Benefits to the farmer, again, ability to connect with multiple buyers, have access to additional buyers than you would have prior to the Stratum product. You can review key information, incorporate all your data and documentation into one place, have the ability to have decision support tools to help enable you make the right decisions. You can measure performance, and you can also consolidate key inputs from other agronomic, machine, and agricultural data into the tool with ease to help you make those decisions. Benefits for the grain buyer are also crucial for Stratum. So the grain buyer is certainly wanting to provide farmers with the best grain marketing platform available, with all of the tools living in one place to be the most efficient offering for the producer. The tool also enhances the grain buyer's ability to assist farmers with their marketing strategies. They can also provide real-time notifications to the farmer about delivery periods, new pricing information, how wait times are looking at the location, and also when to set futures in certain pricing contracts. The grain buyer also would have the ability to gauge how their business is performing compared to the other buyers in the market. So it'll provide a lot of intelligence for the grain buyers on the back end. And with that summary of product, I want to thank you again, and I'm open for any questions you may have.
Thanks, Faith, for that presentation. Very, very interesting. I see there are a couple questions, and maybe just to bucket a couple of them. So Edward has asked whether GrainBridge works for exported products. I assume he means commodities going outside of the US. And Andrew has asked about which elevators you work with. Do you need to scale by any specific geographies?
Sure, that's the great questions. So, because we work with the individual producer, we have a plan that will start in the United States and in North America. And so in the grain sales supply chain, the grain buyers are originating grain from the producers at the local market. And then the grain buyers are then taking the product, consolidating, and they're either selling it domestically for domestic consumption, or they also can load it onto rail or barge and send to export terminals for the export market. And so farmers are certainly interested in their product they know will be consumed both domestically and to serve the export business. And so farmers typically know based on their grain buyers what the grain would be used for as an output. That being said, we plan to fully support the global platform with our grain buyers. Our grain buyers are global in nature. They work in originations in multiple geographic locations. Think North America as a major origination center, South America, the Black Sea, Ukraine region, and elsewhere. And so we've got a roadmap for expansion that will, of course, first start in the United States, and we plan to launch a successful product here and then have a roadmap for future expansion into those other key grain origination geographies.
Got it. Well, we're just out of time. So Faith, thank you very, very much for telling us about GrainBridge. Really appreciate your time, and look forward to speaking soon. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, that wraps up day 1 of 3 of the Tuck AgTech conference. We want to thank everybody for joining us today. We're very excited to have you. Please join us tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern US time, where Sofia Elizondo will give a keynote address. She's the co-founder and COO of Brightseed. We have a number of other topics tomorrow: traceability, food safety, and robotics, in addition to some other pitches and a lot of top-notch, exciting content. So please do join us tomorrow and on Thursday for much more. Thank you.